together with the Belgian guys from the Wrong Object. You did one of the albums that you did under your name.
Yeah.
Alex Maguire Sextet, which was mostly the Wrong Object.
It's basically the Wrong Object, yeah.
So how did that happen? Well, I guess it was through Leonardo, but how did you first meet Michel and the Belgians?
I met them. They came to see us play in Verviers.
Mm-hmm. With Bash?
I think with Bash. And Michel introduced himself, and that's where I first met Michel. Later, I had this idea I wanted to make, and that's how I met Wrong Object, because also Elton played with Wrong Object, also Annie Whitehead and Harry Beckett. So Michel had a way of working where he invited people to come and join the band, and he would make a project. And I think it was through me that he met Leonardo, that Leonardo got involved, because I came to meet Leonardo through Elton in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And that's right. And so then I mentioned it to Michel, and then I had an idea to make a trio. I was very fascinated with Tony Williams' Lifetime, the early version with
McLaughlin and
Larry Young, yeah.
So that became Doubt.
Yes, that's right. That was the idea, that it was kind of to be a slightly updated version of that trio. And that became Doubt with Tony Bianco, this American drummer who lives here in the UK. But he's got a wide range of experience, you know, with Chuck Berry and all kinds of Dave Liebman. I think he may have played with Billy Joel. He was playing with comedians, Chris Rock he played with. Then he moved to Germany, played with Schlittenbach, and he came here. And he used to play with me and Elton, actually. Tony had a tiny one-bedroom place in Haringey, and we could barely fit the three of us in there. And we'd go in there and build a sweat up in this tiny room.
With you playing what?
Electric piano. Yeah.
And so you made one of these albums, the Alex Maguire Sextet, which is one of not too many albums you did under your name. Or
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's all got to change, you know that. I have to put my back into it now. Mm-hmm. Well, now also it's difficult because there aren't the people around. You think, oh, it'd be great to make a group. Yeah. Who would you want? Yeah, what do you want? Phil, wouldn't you want Phil? Oh, well, no, we can't have Phil. A drum, well, maybe we have Pip. Oh, no. We're running out of...
Lots of potential supergroups up there.
Yeah, they've all gone upstairs to play for the big fella.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, very sad for us. Very sad for us.
Yeah. Around that time you made an album that is not as well known as it should be, called Psychic Warrior.
Indeed.
Yeah,
I see it here in Phil's pile of CDs, which is heartwarming.
And it's actually the title track is something you perform with the Reformed Hatfield with lyrics by Pip about the recently deceased Elton.
Yes.
Who is a player on that album along with Fred Baker and Liam Genockey.
Yep.
So tell me more about how that album came about.
We'd made a record called, I think, Headless, which was put out by a French company. These were all connections of Elton's. And we made it actually very near here, in a pub in Stoke Newington, a converted pub. Because Margaret Thatcher at that time decided the pubs had too much property. So she forced them to sell them off. So this guy bought this pub, and he left the bar and the pumps and everything in there. He'd made his money buying and selling classic cars. And he always had a Jaguar parked out the front. It was a funny situation. But he was also a fanatic for valve equipment, and he had valve amplifiers, valve microphones. He had a Hammond B3, and he had a Fender Rhodes, and that's the first time I think that Elton and I got together using electronics and electric instruments. With, I think, Roberto Bellatalla and Tony Bianco is a quartet. And after that, Elton kept saying, you know, we really should do some more with the Hammond organ thing. And so this idea came about. We recorded it down the road from Elton's at Cowshed Studios. And you're right, with the one track, the track Psychic Warrior was originally written for a much bigger group, and it was written to lyrics of a poem by a London-based poet called John Fry, who was known as the Bard because he was kicked out of everywhere he performed. Well, he self-titled himself, the Bard. Wonderful poetry, and the poem was called Psychic Warrior, and it was about the literary critic F.R. Leavis, with whom John had studied at Cambridge, I believe. So it originally had a text to it. Elton played on that. It was quite a big group with Gail Brand and several saxophones, rhythm section, and John the poet reading the lyrics at the same time, which we performed in the Red Rose. And it was a piece that Elton, somehow he just loved it. He would ask to play it all the time. He wanted parts for it. So I thought, well, we should put it on the record too. So we did, and it's had a really varied life, that piece. Because later, of course, as you said, Pip wrote a set of lyrics to it. The lyrics were taken from things that Elton had said when he was in hospital, unconscious. And he'd uttered these phrases, jumping rivers, climbing mountains, all these sort of things. They were isolated phrases that Elton's wife, Marino, had collected. She wrote them down and gave them to Pip, and Pip fashioned them into the lyrics that we have now. That, you're right, Richard sang with Hatfield.